Heads were turned when Sony announced that they were going to be making The Amazing Spider-Man, not because no one expected them to make more Spider-Man films, but because those films started coming out less than a decade ago. Along with X-Men, the first two Spider-Man movies really helped kick off something of a renaissance in comic book films that continues to this day. That might be a bit surprising, especially when you consider how shocked everyone was that Sam Raimi was given the task of directing them. While we have an inevitable new trilogy kicking up later this year, it's high time to look back on the original films and see how they've held up over the last decade. And we might as well start on a high note with the best film in the trilogy, which is, of course, Spider-Man 2.
Whoa! He stole that guy's pizza!
If Spider-Man was a bit of a sounding board for Raimi's ideas for the franchise, where he proved that he could adapt his filmmaking style to a $100 million blockbuster, Spider-Man 2 was the work of someone who knew precisely what he was doing. Before the first film came out, the idea of having a mostly CGI Spider-Man was a bit controversial, but it also allowed Raimi to create action scenes that would have been nearly impossible with an actual actor. Spider-Man 2 ups the ante with even crazier action while also refining the character relationships with a mild amount of poignancy that Spider-Man 3 would throw directly into the garbage. We pick ourselves up with Peter Parker being, what else, somewhat ambivalent about his dual life as college student and superhero.
I'm sorry. I'm trying. I want to be here.
His work as Spider-Man is causing him to fail school and is causing all of his personal relationships to fall apart, leaving him to wonder if he wouldn't be better off simply retiring. The issue is pressed when his powers actually stop working, causing a crisis of faith that of course has to be resolved before he stops the big bad guy at the end of the movie. It's a simple arc, but it's generally well executed. The problem with watching these movies now is that you realize that Tobey Maguire and Kirsten Dunst really aren't all that good in their roles.
My mind was playing tricks too.
Do you love me or not?
There's a regimented feeling to their performances, as if they were locked into the script somehow and not able to ever actually live in those characters. I remember finding them acceptable when I saw this film in theaters, but if it's possible for performances to age, that seems to have occurred with their work here.
I'm just Peter Parker. I'm Spider-Man. No more.
They both seem rather stiff, and it's tough to buy their romance. Of course, it's nothing compared to what they'd go through in the poisonously bad Spider-Man 3, but the cracks really start to show here.
You look different.
I shined my shoes, pressed my pants, did my homework.
On the flip side, Spider-Man 2 has by far the best villain of the series in Alfred Molina's Doc Ock.
Where is she?
Oh, she'll be just fine. Let's talk.
Molina has always been an actor that can steal a scene, but here he manages to steal practically the entire movie as Otto Octavius. He wishes to create a controlled fusion device that can create free energy for the entire world, which is cool, but it's also a little weird that he manages to make AI-controlled autonomous artificial limbs, and no one really seems to bat an eye at how amazing that is.
These smart arms are controlled by my brain through a neural link.
Happy to pay the bills, Otto.
After an early experiment goes predictably awry, the limbs are fused to him and drive him insane. Molina has a lot of fun with the role and manages to deliver all of the usual mad scientist threats with a manner that indicates he's in on the joke while still managing to sometimes sound pretty goddamn terrifying.
I want you to find your friend, Spider-Man. Tell him to meet me at the West Side Tower at 3 o'clock.
Well, I don't know where he is.
Find him. Or I'll peel the flesh off her bones.
If you lay one finger on her...
You'll do what?
A lot of the credit for Otto, though, goes to the CGI artist who managed to imbue his robotic limbs with a lot of fairly subtle character that works really well. Those CGI artists also knocked the ball out of the park when they rendered the various fight scenes between Spider-Man and Octavius, especially the elevated train sequence that is undeniably the film's high point. Again, CGI stunt people can do things that are simply impossible when using real stunt people. And although it's still pretty obvious when you're looking at a bunch of ones and zeros as opposed to a guy in a suit, there's a heft and weight to the movements of those characters that helps sell the illusion. The little details stack up as well, as when Spider-Man busts out of a window of a moving train and uses his webbing to tie himself back down to it on the way out. Even if the film's humor is at times woefully bad and the romantic scenes are best skipped entirely, Spider-Man 2 is still kind of a great movie. It's not the best comic book movie ever made, and it might not even be the best Spider-Man movie ever made after this summer, but it's still an easy candidate for a screened bestie. Let us know what you think about it down in the comments.